This is the real news.
Yeah.
This is the news and the information that will support you.
And the solution, the good news.
Solution.
Like these are solutions. This isn't just
Absolutely.
doom and gloom,
If you go or get just your fruits and vegetables, not counting glyphosate, okay? This is the other pesticides. If you eat just fruits and vegetables that are organic, you're going to eliminate 98% of your pesticide intake. Then if you switch your grains, right, to organic, you're going to eliminate a huge amount of glyphosate from your diet. So just taking those two actions, fruits and vegetables, switch to organic as much as possible, and all of your grains and your oats, your beans, switch to organic. Those are the top two things that I would do on the list to make sure that you're getting healthier food.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is about helping you to be more healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as to harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. Folks, did you know that 1 in 13 kids have food allergies? 1 in 10 have asthma, and 1 in 68 have autism. These numbers are only growing. And in fact, 1 in 3 children has either allergies, asthma, ADHD, or autism. Is this ringing a bell? Do you have kids? Do they have any of these disorders? Do you know kids that do? Well, odds are you probably do, because a third of all of them have some kind of disorder. We didn't have that when we were kids. What is going on, and why are these numbers only getting worse? In fact, did you know that cancer is the #1 cause of death by disease in children under 15? Hello, cancer? I mean, what is happening, folks? What is happening? The guest on my show today is going to help shed some encouraging light on this topic, because you know I'm all about empowering you, and you can't be empowered unless you are making decisions by truly informed consent. It's not safe to assume anything anymore, folks. It's not safe to trust anything anymore until you verify it and you take some time and energy to make sure it's true. Because unfortunately, labels are intentionally deceiving, as are words that are nebulous and very generalized and frankly just kind of abused, in my opinion. There's a lot of fraud out there, is the truth. So we have to be an informed consumer in order to protect ourselves and our family, so we're not one of these statistics. My guest today, Zen Honeycutt, is all about being part of the solution. Due to some of her personal experiences, almost losing one of her sons due to a weird food allergy, she dug deeper and wanted to take action when she found out what was going on in the food industry under our noses. Zen is the founding executive director for Moms Across America, which I love because they are a grassroots organization of moms that consider themselves unstoppable, and they're fighting for their children and for truth and integrity in food processing and food labeling. In fact, their motto is Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids. It's a great organization. You might have seen them in the 4th of July parade, marching with their banners, showing people about, hey, check out genetically modified organisms. Make sure you're not eating them. Here's why. And here are some alternative solutions. Because you know, this show is all about helping you find solutions. I don't want to just talk about the doom and gloom. God knows there's enough of that. And I don't want to do anything to contribute to your anxiety. I want to help you feel empowered. And we can't feel empowered when we don't know what to do. And guess what? You can't be empowered and feeling good and looking good if this stuff is going on under your nose and you don't realize it is. And unfortunately, folks, it is, as you're going to learn today. Some of the things that we talk about in today's show is what are genetically modified organisms? Because they are basically an artificial way of splicing DNA between species that aren't meant to go together. We are really creating this huge chemical experiment the scientific experiment, like mad scientists in the white lab coats, mixing turtles with, goats and this seed with that seed. And it's just nuts. And so the gene sequencing is getting all discombobulated unnaturally. And we don't know the long-term ramifications of these things. But here's the thing I want you to remember today, is that this is going on in the food that you are eating. You are eating food that's genetically modified. And what is that doing to your body and your DNA? In fact, if you are not eating 100% organic, I mean 100%, every single molecule, if you read all the labels and you see natural ingredients or sulfates or any of this stuff, you're not eating organic. You are consuming genetically modified ingredients. In fact, they're not even required to be on the label, folks. And this is part of what Zen Honeycutt and Moms Across America is trying to shed light on, which is a big reason why I wanted her on the show. We got to get the word out there, guys, because we can't be empowered unless we know the truth. So we talk about GMOs, why they're dangerous. We talk about the definition of allergies. Why do so many people have food allergies and intolerances? What's going on? When I was a kid, it was like, maybe every now and then someone might have a peanut allergy. But now it's like people have inflammation and all these disorders and asthma, autoimmune, hypothyroid, ADHD, diabetes. These are all autoimmune, inflammatory related disorders. So we talk about food allergies. We also talk about how the term organic really just means food the way you think it's supposed to be, what it is, okay? Rather than being some kind of fancy, high society, expensive label. When you consume organic food, it's just more guarantee that it's actually what you think you're consuming. And anything that's not organic, therefore, is not. And therefore also has genetically modified scientific experiment, pesticide-ridden, DNA screwed up, and long-term consequences unknown, no animal studies, et cetera, that you're risking. So this is a reason to go organic and non-GMO and be part of the movement. We also talk about how the food industry is no longer a food industry. It's really a chemical corporate industry because they are a captured audience that unfortunately is not what we think it is. How the organic farming industry is actually rigged against natural farming practices for the farmer. I mean, the whole system's set up to support big agri. And how Europe is different than the United States. Their standards are more strict. Therefore, we can change things here in America with the way our food is produced because it's already being done. Why are there two sets of food rules for different countries? So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please, as always, share it with other moms, other people who might be having problems with any of the autoimmune disorders that I mentioned. And again, we can't be part of the solution unless we know the problem, unless we're aware of what's going on. So now let's join Zen Honeycutt. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today, my guest is Zen Honeycutt. Zen, welcome to the show.
Amy, so glad to be here. So glad to be with your audience. Thank you for having me.
Zen, I have to tell you, you have just such an amazing life. I can't wait to share you with my audience, not only just because of your work now with Moms Across America and how absolutely critically important the work you're doing. I'm psyched to delve into that to help spread the word. But your life is so inspiring. The way your parents raised you and into the person whom you become in order to do the life you are now currently doing. I think it's a huge lesson to all parents out there of how to do it.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to be happy to share whatever it is we can talk about today and hopefully, inspire or remind people of their own power and how important their particular attributes are and how they can contribute in the world.
I love that. And I know too, in Moms Across America, your organization, you talk about that mothers, and we all need to know like how powerful we really are. Sometimes we forget, and I hear this a lot. People think, what can I do? It's just me, one person. It's like, come on, if every single person said that, we'd all be screwed, but if everybody did do something, we definitely, and there's power in the masses, I mean, look what's happening with, the whole movement to buy organic, which obviously we're going to get to, but that was unheard of a couple decades ago. So we have a lot of more power than we think we do.
Absolutely. And when I checked in with a legislator, when I first started Moms Across America and had the idea to join into 4th of July parades, I wanted to check in if that would be effective. Are they going to care about a bunch of moms and kids and their families with their dogs dressed up in red, white, and blue, joining into 4th of July parades to raise awareness about GMOs and the food supply? Is that going to matter? And he said, oh yeah, legislators are more scared of moms than any other grassroots group out there. So just as a reminder, if you're a mom or a woman, I think he really means women, that, they are scared of us because we are unstoppable. The source of our power comes from love for our families and for our communities in our country. And there's no limit to that. We have an unlimited source of fuel, and it will absolutely overcome money or corruption or power any day, all day long. So I do want people to remember how powerful they are and to speak up and step up and show up.
I think that's so critical, because I just got a picture, a visual of like just a regular mom from like Nebraska, like in front of a Senate committee hearing or something, and she's just up there in her jeans and her t-shirt and whatever, and just speaking her truth of her experience with her children or whatever happened. And people can't dismiss that. Like, you don't need to have a PhD or all these credentials or anything. Just there. And to your point, I mean, your love can be your fuel, and moms are disarming. Who's going to argue with a mom and her passionate love and motivation of trying to protect her children and the planet? I mean, that's pretty disarming right there. So yeah. Who's going to go against that?
And there's a phrase that says that a worried mom does better research than the FBI. I mean, we're not just loving and passionate. We bring the science. We do the research. And we bring it, and we're not afraid to bring it, and we will bring the sources. And you'll see on Moms Across America, our data page is loaded with science. But to address that point of the woman in Nebraska, in the parades that we first initiated back in 2013, we got started in 2012, but the first parades were in 2013. There was a woman just like that in Kentucky, and she went to the parade. She had organized a small group, and maybe about 14 people, to join into the 4th of July parade in Kentucky. In I think it was Wichita, maybe that's Kansas. Anyway, I'm sorry, either Kansas or Kentucky. And she got to the parade, and there was nobody else there because it was lightly raining, but the parade still happened. So she joined into that parade with her 18-month-old in a stroller, holding the sign about labeled GMOs. All it said was Google GMOs. And she walked in that parade by herself. And she said she got heckled. And she told me later that it was terrible. And I said, but you know what? You kept going. You stayed in that parade. What had you do that? And she said, well, because I said I would. And because this matters to the future of my children. And I said, so it wasn't terrible. It was a triumph. That was a triumph of human spirit. You marched down that parade. You reached thousands of people all by yourself with your baby. And those people are going to wonder about what GMOs are. They're going to go home and they're going to Google it. And they're going to find out that genetically modified organisms have been in our food for 20 years without labeling. And that's a problem. We should know. We have the right to know what's in our food. And there's all kinds of inherent problems with GMOs. And you did that. And so she left the call empowered and continued to, volunteer for Moms Across America. And now all kinds of people in Kentucky and Kansas and across the country know about GMOs and are choosing organic. And we're going to, I'm sure, get more into that. But that is what makes a difference. One person. Yes.
Yep. One person. I love it. I mean, we all have to use our voice, and sometimes it might not be fun, and we're going to get pushed back and heckled like she did, or criticized by our family. Even people close to us are ostracized or whatever, but it can't stop you, especially when it's your truth and it's coming from love. So let's talk about, just to backtrack a little bit, about your amazing life story. And can you just give us the synopsis of going to the boarding school and then growing up on the what did you call that? It was like a
Stillwater's Resort.
the resort. That I knew it wasn't a retreat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, cause just give everybody the background, because it just had so much to do to formulate who you became as a woman.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I was very fortunate. My parents met in New York City. And my mom was a Pan Am stewardess and my dad was a off-Broadway actor, and they realized they didn't want to raise children in New York City. So they got a piece of property in Connecticut that was a former Finnish resort. And even though the word resort sounds fancy, it was cottages, built in the 30s. And so I grew up hosting groups of people, like 50 people on the weekends, maybe 35, 50 people almost every weekend during the summertime, making beds, cleaning toilets in cottages, and working hard to host community. And I think that really instilled in me a sense of appreciating community and different cultures. We had people from China, people from Russia, people from, not China, but from New York City that were Chinese church and drum and bugle corps groups and things like that. And so people from different cultures that came to our home, and we hosted them. And I was very connected with nature. It was 100 acres with an 8-acre private pond. And so the entirety of my summer was barefoot in nature, outside, running around, except when I was in the cottages cleaning. And I learned how to work hard. I learned how to appreciate nature. I went off to boarding school when I was 14 and lived kind of like a Hogwarts sort of, hall dormitories and all of that in Connecticut. It was called Choate Rosemary Hall. I was felt very honored and privileged to get a scholarship to go there. And so I worked my butt off there too, became one of those, a high achieving, what do they call type A personality type people that,
overachiever.
Got on student council. I was so grateful to be there. I showed up and, was on student council and raised more money than the school had ever raised, things like that. So yeah, it was very, very active in my community. So I was thrilled to be able to go off to New York City and become a fashion designer. I went to Parsons School of Design for 4 years. But I took a break in between, ended up being 5 years, because I took a break and I backpacked around China when I was 19. For 3 months.
With no cell phone.
Yeah, no cell phone, just a Lonely Planet guidebook.
Yeah.
Nuts. And 10 hours of Chinese under my belt. But I met all kinds of people from all around the world. I met five Australians named Dave and all kinds of Israelis. And, it was just a very adventurous, early 20s type of lifestyle in New York City.
A 19-year-old girl by herself backpacking around China with 10 hours of the local language under her belt.
Yes.
And by herself. Hello. So let's just take a moment and just a little bit about your parents, the way they raised you, to be like, you can do it. And there was really no gender. You had a brother, but it was just, you kids can do it. And you were empowered to be confident and to be involved, to be active, to get involved and do it.
Yeah. My parents named us Tao, Zen, and Qi. That's Tao. That's the path of life. Yep. Zen is almost life itself, and Qi is the breath of life. And those would have been our names whether we were boys or girls.
Oh,
our parents were named married in the 60s. My dad was the first man in the hospital to be in the birthing room when my mom gave birth.
Wow.
He was very supportive of us doing whatever we set our minds to, and he said he would find a way to pay for college and all that. But because he was so supportive, I wanted to do well, right? So that's why I worked hard and got good grades and earned scholarships to both the high school and the college that I went to. And he was very supportive of travel. He paid for the 10 hours of lessons of Chinese. I paid for my ticket and all my travel. I worked as a waitress on a yacht in New York City when I was going to college. So I paid for that, trip myself. But, they just believed that we could do anything we set our minds to, but didn't coddle us. We had to earn it. We had to work hard. They didn't just give us tons of compliments and, try to boost up our confidence. We really had to work hard for what we did.
They had you cleaning the toilets and the guest rooms, and
absolutely.
You were earning your keep, and they're probably maintaining the garden and the animals, and you had your chores.
Yes, we absolutely had our chores. We got paid for it. It was a small amount, but that money we saved up for our school books.
That's what I
saved
did
for our education. And my mom my mom is still with us, and she's this glorious human being that is just curious about everything, and she sees the good in everything. For instance, we were walking down the street in New York City. I was moving again, and she came to help me move, and there was this, we come across the street and there's this giant dog poop, like a Great Dane had just been there, like curled up, like a giant dog poop. And she looks at it and goes, "Oh, nature sculpture."
I thought she was going to say, glad we didn't step in it. At least we saw it so big we could see it.
Sculpture. She saw dog poop as nature's sculpture. So
the spiral.
She sees the good in everything and has taught me to look for the good in everything. It's very hard to find that when you're looking at what Monsanto's doing in the world. But in general, I think it's very effective to look for the good in everyone and to acknowledge that you're going to be much more effective in communication and connection and making a difference if you look for the good in people and
for your mental health, I think, just for, to calm that anxiety wave that everyone's chronically trying to keep under the water here. That's beautiful. Okay, so then you met your amazing husband when you were doing a swing dance.
Yes,
and the rest
you've done your research.
Oh, I sure did. That's what I said. I mean, I want, obviously we're going to get deep into your Moms Across America work and all the research there that, like you said, is backed by hard science. This isn't just like a group of moms going, hey, we're worried. This is like backed up. But you guys met and had that connection, but then what really was the start? You almost lost one of your sons. So let's get into Moms Across America, like fast forward now to that whole shift of your career from fashion design to now I'm going to like take some active steps here to be part of the solution.
Sure. Yeah. So I did fashion design for 7 years, and that was in New York and Los Angeles area and Hong Kong and Montreal, different places. But I segued into technical design and then used that to segue into natural wellness by making my own lavender-based products. My company was called Zen's Purple Garden. And that was because I learned about parabens in the water, coming off of sunscreen and body care products that we use. My friend had a mother who died at 57 of toxins. And I said, what do you mean toxins? She said, like parabens and body care product. I had never heard of that. And I frankly was not looking at any labels. I was just buying Suave off the, anything that was on the shelf. I just figured had been cleared for safety by the government. And so I really wasn't reading any kind of labels. It was just whatever smelled good or tasted good or whatever. And so I started looking into the labels and I learned about parabens. And then I saw this article in the Los Angeles Times about off the coast of Malibu, these fish that were being tested, just randomly checked. 50% of them were hermaphrodites, the male fish. And they attributed to the parabens. And at that time I had a baby boy and I was like, wait a second, I think I might want to be looking into this paraben thing. So I developed this natural wellness product line and did that for 7 years. And when it got to a point where I'd have to invest like millions into, it was such a big deal. I didn't want to do it anymore. I had 3 children by that time.
Wow.
And they were sick. They had 20 different allergies. They had asthma symptoms eventually. Eventually one had autism symptoms. They had all kinds of autoimmune issues, rashes, weird times of, fevers and all kinds of things. And so I closed out that company because I just didn't want to go to the next level with it. And I wanted to pay attention to my kids. And within 6 months, I started Moms Across America. And that was because I learned about GMOs and what's going on in the food supply and decided to do something about it. I thought, what if I'm the one that's going to transform the food industry? Not me by myself, not like an ego thing, right? But like, I'm not going to wait for Jeffrey Smith or Robin O'Brien to do it or Pam Larry. Like, I have a responsibility to do something about this. I can do something about this. I'm willing to do something about it. And so that's why I took on Moms Across America and began to start that. We can get into more details about that too.
Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying the show. I'm here with my friend Hannah of Sebin Solus, my favorite new skincare company and self-care. Your company is truly unique, which is why I wanted to share it. Can you tell us some of the things that make Sebin Solus unique, Hannah?
What makes it unique is actually I'm an earth scientist, and it's my involvement as a scientist in each and single farm that we source our sacred, sustainable ingredients for self-care and skincare, empowering women and families that work on our co-managed farms in Iran, Egypt, Morocco, and Kenya, and India, where we source these ingredients. Everything is hand-selected, hand-extracted, and handmade with wild-crafted ingredients with no synthetic fragrance, parabens, alcohol, or animal testing. So everything is done with ancient farming practices, which is also known as biodynamic. We feed the soil with proper nutrition, from green manure to compost, and we exclude any fertilizer or pesticides to keep the farms healthy and the ingredients healthier for our bodies.
I'm super grateful to have found you guys. And don't you offer a special coupon code for our audience so they can try it at a discount?
All caps, Fit Amy TV 10. And if you enter that on our website, you get 10% off our entire website, which is animal care, skincare, and self-care products.
Which is an amazing offering. Thank you so much, Hannah. You almost lost one of your sons, right, on Thanksgiving?
Oh, yes.
The
yes.
5-year-old. Tell us about
Yeah,
that.
so
that was
first,
a
yeah.
huge impetus.
Yeah, he had allergies when he was a baby. I had to stop eating any kind of dairy, which was terrible. You know, no pizza or cheese or milk while I was breastfeeding. And then he gradually had more and more allergies, we noticed. And when he was 5, all of a sudden we were at Thanksgiving and he looked very, very sick. And I'm like, oh no, it's like the stomach bug or something. You know, there were 18 people in the room and he had just gotten his food and he was eating and all of a sudden looked super sick. And I said, why don't you go to the back room and rest? And then a few minutes later, we heard him just scream, like cry out. And we ran to him and his body was puffed up like a raspberry. I mean, his whole body, especially the stomach and groin area, you know, but welts all over his body. And so we had known he had some type of allergy to nuts at that time because he had some nuts when he was like a toddler and had a mild reaction, but this was horrible. And so we had an EpiPen. My husband jabbed it in his leg. He couldn't pull it out though. So I had to pull it out and blood spurted across the room. I mean, it was
Wow.
terrifying. And so we didn't even think, we just grabbed him and ran to the car and went to the hospital. We didn't even think about calling 911. We couldn't wait for anything. And while we were in the car, his eyes started rolling back in his head. Like I thought he was going to die right there. So I rubbed on his chest and I just willed him to breathe, you know, and we got to the hospital. They immediately took him in. They hooked him up to IV. They put pumping steroids into him. And while he was getting hooked up to this stuff, he was looking at me like, Mom, like, help me, you know, and like begging me with his eyes to help him. And there was nothing I could do but pray to God. There was nothing else I could do. I just said, you're going to make it. I'm praying to God. You're going to make it. And thank God he lived. Wow. And, you know, but we had to avoid nuts for many, many years after that. And it was terrifying. We'd go to a birthday party and he would grab a cookie off the coffee table. You know, he was 6 or something and he would eat it and then he's vomiting and going to the hospital again, you know, and the doctors told me it would get worse, that with every exposure would become more and more life-threatening. So you can imagine how social events were for me. They were like it was like being on a minefield.
Just life.
It's
he's out in the world. You don't know what he's going to get exposed to.
Yeah. So that was very scary. And it wasn't until he was about 9 years old when his allergies were getting worse and worse. He had a red line around his mouth that would puff up. His lips would get big. Yeah, it looks like they've been sucked on by a vacuum cleaner.
Totally,
right?
with red, yeah. like red, like they put the lipstick on the outside.
Yeah, and we didn't know what it was, and so we went to like 6 different doctors, and everything they did was just make it worse. The cream, you know, hurt.
Yeah,
and everything. And one day he looked at me and said, "Mom, I wish all my allergies would go away." And I said, "Me too, buddy." But in my head, I was thinking that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I realized what I was thinking in my head. I heard myself and I said, wait a second, that's disempowering. That's not what I'm committed to. I'm committed to being creative and courageous and a contribution to the world. And I want my son to feel that way too. What if we could do something about this? So I thought of my cousin Sarah, who had gone gluten-free for a year. And then she was able to eat gluten now and then, like a piece of pizza at a birthday party or a piece of wedding cake, right? And so I reminded him of her and I said, what if you could do that too? Would you like to eat a piece of pizza at a birthday party like a year from now? And he thought about it and said, yes. And I said, because he couldn't do that at the time, right? We had to bring our own food to all the birthday parties. And so I said, well, would you be my partner in your health? Would you drink green drinks and go to alternative therapies and like figure this out with me? And he said, yes. And I said, then I promise you, buddy. And I shook his hand, you will get better. And that was kind of like a God white light moment. Like I didn't know how to do that. I did not know how to do that, but I did know that if I made a promise and I had his partnership,
Yeah.
We would do things we never otherwise would be able to do, in any other way. Together. Yeah. So we did that, and we learned and we researched about GMOs, and eventually glyphosate. He went GMO free, and within 4 months, his allergies were dramatically reduced. And within once his brother, my second son, had to go organic because of his autism symptoms, which I'll get more into later. And he was organic for about a year. Then we retested him, and his allergy levels went from a 19 with the nuts that were life-threatening down to a 0.2.
Wow. A year later.
Yeah, he no longer has life-threatening nut allergies. If he eats them by accident, like a vegan dessert with cashews in it, he will get a stomach ache and he has to lay down. But he's not going to die from them.
So much for them getting worse, and so much for them being there forever, and so much for him having to learn how to live with it and all that. So there you go.
Yeah, and my other sons that couldn't eat wheat, couldn't eat eggs, couldn't eat dairy, now can eat all of those foods as long as they're organic.
Yep. Yeah. And that's because there was a period of strict abstaining, right?
Yes, because we healed their gut. Yes, we went 100% organic for, it was at least a year or two, probably longer, but we really noticed the difference after about a year.
Yeah.
We may have noticed difference earlier. We just didn't, sort of test it out. We went 100% organic, but we did actually do some testing with my second son. I'll mention him now. So my second son, Bodhi, had autism symptoms when he was about 8 years old. It was a sudden onset of erratic behavior and hitting, and his grades dropped from A's to D's. And we didn't know what was going on with him. My husband thought it was just a phase, but I said, no, there is something, he's looking at me with these eyes like I need help, not liking who he is, and I need help. So I took him to the doctor, who happened to be an autism doctor. And we were going to this doctor because he had a spaced out vaccine schedule, which I preferred to do one at a time. And because at that time, I still believed that they were, beneficial for my kids. So I was doing some vaccines at that time. And we went to him, and he said, well, I'm going to test him for pathogenic gut bacteria. And I said, why is that? He said, because the pathogenic gut bacteria can signal the vagus nerve to tell the brain to sort of go and attack. I don't know if he mentioned it exactly this way, but this is basically what doctors explained to me later, that it can cause inflammation in the brain. And the inflammation in the brain can lead to these autism symptoms like lack of eye contact, aggressive behavior, learning problems. And I thought, well, wow, that's what I've been told by Dr. Matt Buckley, that what glyphosate does. Glyphosate kills off the beneficial gut bacteria and allows for the proliferation of pathogenic gut bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli, which my son had tons of in his gut. Wow. And they tell the vagus nerve to tell the microglia cells in the brain to go and attack, bad guys attack, and they cause inflammation. They create excitotoxins, which create inflammation in the brain. And eventually those brain neurons die, and you have that lack of connection and control over their behavior. So that equals autism symptoms, not autism, but autism symptoms. And so I thought that's what's going on with him. And so I got him tested for glyphosate. That was right around the time when we initiated the first glyphosate testing in America. And we got our son tested, all three sons tested for glyphosate. And the two other ones who were gluten intolerant were negative. But Bodhi, my middle one, who was eating wheat, was positive for glyphosate. And he had 8.7 parts per billion in his urine. That's as high as a farmer who uses
working
Roundup.
In the fields. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so at the same time of this sudden onset of autism symptoms. So I made the connection. Wait a second. He's eating this wheat, which is sprayed with glyphosate. And, the other two are not, and they don't have these symptoms.
Charts.
So yeah, it's off the chart. Let's take him off of that and eat 100% organic. And also the doctor said to cut out sugar because the sugar can feed the bad gut bacteria.
Yep.
So no Skittles for kids with autism, folks, as a reward. It's just feeding the bad gut bacteria. Okay, so off with the sugar, out with the sugar, which he did between Thanksgiving and New Year's. No sugar, even for Christmas. He did not eat sugar. It was amazing. He had such good willpower. And then at the end of that 6 weeks, when he was 100% organic, no sugar, and putting in sauerkraut, we did have to do an antifungal because he had C. diff and a antibacterials for a couple weeks. But at the end of that 6 weeks, we retested him. His glyphosate levels were no longer detectable and his autism symptoms were gone. And the behavioral issues have only come back when he's eaten a lot of sugar, GMO foods, like he calls this one set of cookies at a bakery that we like, or we used to like, the depression cookies, right? Like he knew after he had them, he would feel depressed.
Smart kid.
So yeah, so we strongly encourage going 100% organic to allow the gut to heal itself, to get the toxins out of the body, to allow the brain to be able to interact the way it's supposed to
normalize.
To normalize. I mean, because if you think about it, you can't put a teaspoon of fuel into a campfire and expect it to go out, right?
Right. Like, because people say, yeah, I'm 80%.
Yeah.
And they, no, what you're saying is no, it's that
not when you have a fire going on. If you've got a fire going on in your gut, you cannot keep putting the fuel in. You've got to cut it out.
Such a good point.
Completely for an extended period of time in order for the gut to be able to heal. And you can do that. You can go back to, as I've said, my kids now eat the wheat and the dairy.
It's not forever.
And the eggs, and they can eat it now. I mean, it's amazing.
And the thing is too, like that story you're giving, just for the audience, is there's the thousands of people with the same story. It's not just, you or Bodhi, or like this
we have thousands of people who've commented through social media. We have 500 just by emails. We just stopped gathering after 500.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've sent them to Monsanto. We've sent those testimonials to the EPA, to the FDA. Yes, we have
wonder where they go.
Communicated what our moms have communicated with us, with our regulatory agencies as well.
Good. Okay, so what are we really talking about? What is glyphosate? What are GMOs? Why do we need to know? Where are they? What's the deal on just the basics for the audience?
Okay, I'll try to make it real quick. So there's three types of GMOs. The first one is where the GMO is engineered to contain pesticide in every cell of the plant. So when the bug comes along, it eats that part of the plant, whatever part of the plant, and the toxin gets into its gut. It's called bacteriotheriogenesis. It creates more and more toxins. It's like a little toxin factory, explodes the stomach, and the bug dies. So that's called the Bt toxin GMO, engineered to be a pesticide, basically. The second type of GMO is engineered to withstand herbicides. So an airplane or a tractor can fly over the field, the soy or the corn, or sugar beets or whichever, and they can spray the entire field. The weeds will die, but the crop will not. And the problem with that is that the glyphosate in the Roundup, which 80% of these types of GMOs are engineered to withstand Roundup, the glyphosate, which is in the Roundup, gets into the plant and it does not wash, dry, or cook off. So we then end up eating the glyphosate, okay? Yeah. And because we're not Roundup ready. So then the third type of GMO is what I call, and many people call, desired trait, with DT, which is genetically engineered, usually by CRISPR or gene editing or gene drive, to have a desired trait, such as the salmon will grow 4 times fatter, 4 times faster, and be sterile, right? GMO salmon. Or an apple or a potato, which is genetically engineered to not brown. Now, it's still rotting, you just can't see it. It's the browning is masked. Yes. So, and then there's all kind of pink pineapples and, just different, unnecessary things. They claim that having rice with more vitamin A in it was supposed to be beneficial, but frankly, nobody wanted it. And you'd have to eat like 12 bowls of rice or something like that to get your recommended daily level, amount of vitamin A, whereas you could just have a carrot and a handful of spinach and,
or an egg yolk,
a sweet potato or something. Yeah. Or an egg yolk. Yeah. You could have other foods. So those are the 3 types of GMOs. And the one that we most focus on is the one that's herbicide tolerant, because it's so much glyphosate's being used. 280 million pounds a year are sprayed on our agriculture crops of glyphosate. It's an enormous amount of glyphosate. And glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor, meaning it disrupts hormones. It can cause reproductive issues. It's been shown to kill and damage sperm. So thanks, Monsanto, for making our men sterile. Yep. It's been shown to androgenize female babies, making them more masculine. That the anogenital distance between the anus and the genitals gets longer when the mothers are exposed. So it makes them more masculine, their reproductive organs more masculine. And so it's an endocrine disruptor. It's also a chelator, meaning it grabs onto and holds and makes unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. So if you're wondering why people seem to be vitamin B deficient, vitamin D deficient, like all these different vitamins, why are we having to take so many supplements? That's a good, culprit to look at is glyphosate. Yeah.
So it's stealing the nutrition
Yes.
of all this expensive diet that we're spending our money on.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
taking the nutrients.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also it also causes liver disease and cancer and kidney disease. And it causes nervous system damage. A lot of people don't talk about that, but there's some very credible studies from China showing nervous system damage, especially in farm workers. So it is a really bad guy. With some people say that it's going to make DDT look like mouthwash.
Wow.
Some of the scientists that have studied these chemicals.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what we're talking about here, GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, and the whole idea is this is to produce food and crops that are resistant to pests and bugs and weeds and all that to increase yield for the farmers.
Yes.
So we don't begrudge anybody from trying to make a living and make money. That's not the problem. Okay. And I know you agree with that. But what's happening with the GMOs is that we are basically overriding evolution. We are playing God, if you will, and we are splicing genes. We're taking genetically coded material and intermixing species. For example, one GMO thing that I heard about is they are taking spider DNA and they're injecting it into goats.
Yes.
Because it was one of the references that I think you had given me, and to make like military gear that's like bulletproof or something. I don't know.
Yeah, through the goat milk. Yes.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, this is so GMOs are used across the board, not just in the food and agri industries. However, this is a major issue because I'm glad you said the 3 types. What we're talking about, guys, here is if you're not eating organic food, you are definitely ingesting these toxins. You're ingesting hormone disruptors. That's also how they kill the pests, is they don't allow them to reproduce. Or once the bug eats something on the plant, their stomach will blow up and they die. I mean, so aren't we going to think logically, if you then eat that plant, you are ingesting all those chemicals and toxins, and it's going to affect your system the same way. Now, maybe in a smaller dose, but put that into years and months of eating and a lifetime, and you don't think it's going to accumulate. And what's happening is we have no idea the long-term effects. There's been no long-term studies except I think the one study done, like, I don't know what, like everybody had the allergy or something. There was one little study done, but
I think that was the GMO Starlink corn. And that was eliminated, by the way. They got rid of that. Yeah.
Okay. Of course.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have no idea what we're doing, and we're playing with the DNA, the gene sequencing, and there's no clue about the long-term effects. And, also with the allergies. So you mentioned so many of the associations with these. Oh, I know what I want to say. You can't wash it off. Because I'm not going to mention names, but even people in my own family, because they know how I eat, and I'm in that industry, obviously. But I'll just wash it off. At least it's a vegetable or whatever. It's like, no, you can't wash it off.
I was so mad when I found that out because I really felt tricked. I felt betrayed. There I was washing off my fruits and vegetables, and then I learned that glyphosate doesn't wash off. I was like, wait a second, but they don't tell you that, and they don't label it. They don't tell you that it's in the food.
Well, we got to talk about that. That's a whole other issue. I mean, hello, it's not even on the label. So if you're not eating organic, which is back to Zen's point earlier in the show, why she tells everyone eat 100% organic for a while, you have to. Because if you're not, you are definitely ingesting these chemicals, and you don't know it because they're not required to tell you.
Yes, and we know though that you are ingesting these chemicals because we initiated the glyphosate testing, and many other organizations have tested for glyphosate, and actually, like, the Canadian government tested 7,800 food samples for glyphosate and found it in the majority of the food samples. And some food products like wheat or garbanzo beans, I believe it was close to 90 to 100% of those samples were positive for glyphosate.
Legumes and grains, soy,
lentils,
cotton,
soy, oats. Oh my gosh! If you're having oatmeal for breakfast and then you think you're healthy by having hummus and wheat pita bread for lunch.
Wow.
And then you're like, okay, I'm a vegetarian. I'm just going to have some pasta for dinner. You are eating some of the highest levels of glyphosate that you could be eating out of everything in the food supply, including junk food, like hot dogs and chicken wings or whatever.
Worse.
Yes, the wheat has very high levels of glyphosate, the oats, the garbanzo beans, the peas, the lentils, and all of that. And that's because they spray it as a drying agent. So I mentioned before the GMOs, and one of the GMOs is engineered to withstand Roundup, but they also spray glyphosate as a drying agent on crops so that they can harvest it faster. And that's all of the grains that you just mentioned. So sorry, folks, it's in your beer.
Yeah. Yes. And you don't, you will not know about it, which is a huge part.
They won't label it. It's also in wine if they use wine, if they spray Roundup on the vineyards.
The grapes,
so what you want to look for, it uptakes. Remember I told you it absorbs the roots, uptake it, and goes into the grapes and the seeds and all that. So if you are in a wine region and you want to pick a vineyard to visit, I would pick one that has a lot of grass in between the vines,
space,
a lot of grass. It's not brown. It doesn't look neat and clean. It's got a lot of grass. It's got a lot of growth there, because that means they're not spraying Roundup.
Nice. Yeah, like natural vegetation. If it looks perfect, that's
which actually
not
keeps the soil, it keeps the water in the soil, it keeps the microbes in the soil, it keeps all the little bugs and everything that you need to keep the soil, healthy. That's what you want to have. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, and that's the thing with the GMOs. It's just not natural what's going on. It defies the laws of nature. And then leading to not only, there's direct science with autism cases with glyphosate, and like you mentioned, non-fatty liver disease, which is 1 in 3 adults now in America. It's like there's becoming an epidemic of this. And in children,
100 million people in America now, according to the American Liver Foundation, have a form of liver disease, mostly non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So where is this coming from? Right. Well, lo and behold, there was a study showing that glyphosate causes liver disease in rats at very low levels. It was like 4 parts per billion per kilogram of body weight. So that's the equivalent of 25 parts per billion in our food. And that's what we're seeing in our food, in the food testing. Can we talk about the school lunches?
Yes, we have to talk about the school lunches, but let me just put a pause on that,
Okay,
because
sure.
I just want to, for the audience, remember now your liver.
All food.
We definitely talk about that, because the kids are the most vulnerable. In fact, I heard the 3 most vulnerable are prenatal, in the womb.
Yes.
The infancy, and then the high school and elementary school. Those are the 3 most vulnerable groups, of course. Yeah. But the liver, just for the audience, remember, this is a detox organ. So your body has normal pathways to get rid of toxins, like through your skin, through your liver, through your kidneys, your lungs, your digestive tract, your elimination, your urine, your poop, and it's about the toxic load. We are just getting bombarded. And we want to bring the good news at the end of this, but we just have to be aware. It's just unfortunately true. Even electromagnetic rays from computers, cell phones, Bluetooth, satellites, 5G. These are all things that our body has to detoxify. So now we're talking about basically what we think is food that is not food. It's basically chemical soup, poison disguised as food to taste good and to look good. And we don't even have to talk about the obesogens, which are the ingredients in food that are known to just make us put on weight and sequester fat, because your body will put on fat because fat shuns the toxins away from the rest of your body. So a lot of reasons why people put on fat is because their body's trying to protect itself. But I guess I'm getting on another tangent. The point
it's all about health.
Yeah.
But how these chemicals impact us. Yeah.
Yes, and but the thing about the liver, we just have to understand is, your body, all stress and toxins accumulate in your body, and everybody has a breaking point. Everybody has a threshold. We have to pick our battles, right? Like, for example, you might drink coffee, or you might like 1 glass of wine at night, whatever, but on the other end, you make sure you exercise. You like to take Epsom salt baths. You do maybe sauna. You like to, whatever. You drink a lot of pure water. We have to pick our battles, because it all accumulates. And it's when your individual body, your individual time hits that stress threshold, just 1 straw extra broke that camel's back. That's when we get into diseases and problems. And the things like the GMOs and the glyphosate and all that, what I'm understanding in my research then is that the food allergies, like your first son, the example you gave, and I love that Robin O'Brien, the analyst of that wonderful TED Talk, everyone might want to check out.
Yes, that was how I learned about GMOs.
Yep,
with Robin
me
O'Brien.
too.
Yep.
And the TED Talk was
Patriotism on a Plate.
Yes, and she mentioned that it's not necessarily the food you're eating that's giving you the allergy. It's what they did to the food that's giving you the allergy. So do you want to just expand on that a little bit so we can understand what does that mean?
Absolutely. So like I explained earlier, my sons had allergies to wheat, to eggs, to dairy, to nuts and all these things. And my husband and I didn't have those when we were young, right? We didn't know anybody else with allergies like that. So we were like, what the heck is going on with the food supply? And then we watched Robin O'Brien's talk and it started to look into GMOs. I watched Jeffrey M. Smith's movie Genetic Roulette. And I was like, wait a second, they've changed the food. They've changed the food. They've genetically modified it. They haven't
and didn't tell us.
They didn't tell us. And they're spraying all types of pesticides in this, and they've gotten through that loophole. They don't have to add that those pesticides are in the food, even though you can test them and find them there, just like sugar or salt. They don't have to put in the label that those pesticides are there because they call those pesticides a process and not an additive. So the FDA classifies anything that's a process as something that doesn't have to be on the label, right? Even if it shows up and it's detectable, like GMOs and pesticides. So these things are being done to the food and we don't have to know about it because the government doesn't require it. And that's why they, but just to touch on the labeling thing for a minute there, they passed a GMO labeling law. It was first Obama and then Trump enacted it. So all parties are equally guilty of total corruption in the food supply. Okay, folks. And Obama passed it, that the law that it could be, a QR code or a phone number or a website on the label. It doesn't have to say made with genetically engineered ingredients, right? And then Trump allowed that to happen, right? And went past that through. And Trump actually also allowed the genetic GMO companies to regulate themselves, to determine for themselves whether or not their products need to be regulated. So there's no regulation going on right now with GMOs, okay? No regulation and no GMOs being labeled. And so that happened. And then recently the Center for Food Safety sued, and the Supreme Court's found, this is a great win, that food manufacturers cannot just put a QR code on a package and have you scan it to find out whether or not it's there are ingredients in there that are genetically modified. They must do better than they cannot use the QR code for that.
Good.
And that is really good because a lot of food companies wanted to use the QR codes for everything because they didn't want you to know other ingredients that are in the food either, like, additives and preservatives. So they won that. So that's a big win. And that's consumers across the country should be very proud because, millions of people fought for GMO labeling and we didn't win. But at least we're winning this now. There is progress. And so, we are moving forward with that. So it's about what's being done to the food, because when you go back to ancient grains, wheat, for instance, that's not been hybridized with gliadin in it. It's a protein that most people that have a gluten intolerance, that's what they're allergic to. They're not allergic to the ancient grains, which is what I found. So I can eat wheat now as long as it's ancient grains and it's not, modern wheat sprayed with glyphosate. And so I don't eat it often because I do gain weight still, but I don't get a rash when I eat those ancient grains. And my kids can eat, as I mentioned, the dairy and the eggs and all, the wheat and all of that. And I believe that most people, except people with celiacs, right, could heal their gut, pay attention to their gut and heal themselves and be able to eventually tolerate the foods that their body has told them that they can't tolerate because of the chemicals.
Yes. And I think it's worth underscoring that what's happening here when you say you can't eat something, like when people say they have an allergy or an intolerance to nuts or wheat or dairy or soy or whatever it is, what an allergy really is the body is reacting, creating inflammation as a way to protect itself when it detects something that's foreign in the system. It's a good thing. It's a natural mechanism to protect you, but it's designed to be short term. It's designed to be like, oh, okay, there's a little bacteria in the hamburger you ate yesterday or whatever. It's not designed to be going on 24/7 and chronic. in for these chemicals that it doesn't recognize because they're man-made. And they, like we mentioned in the beginning, the GMOs that are, you know, man-made, genetically splicing different species genes together. Like evolution is just like, can't catch up. Like, what are you guys even doing? So the body is just, all the red flags, like a fire drill is going off inside your body. And that heat creates inflammation, which is the swelling and the redness, and every disease we know is related to inflammation: heart disease, diabetes, cancer, high cholesterol, autoimmune, thyroid. Did I say diabetes? Diabetes and autism, right? I mean, these are all this MS,
All
Alzheimer's,
inflammation. Yep.
all inflammation. So these toxic chemicals that are on non-organic foods, you're eating your healthy salad. Well, if it's not organic, you're getting a nice big bowl of raw chemicals. And it's very unfortunate that we have to think, oh, is it organic? And think that's like special and pricey, when in fact, all organic really means is food the way you think of food.
The way
Like
grandma used to call
exactly.
it.
It's like
Grandma used to
now,
call
unfortunately,
food.
we have
Yeah.
to call it organic to be what we think it is. And that's a big part of the reason, Zen, why I wanted you on the show, because a big part of my show is helping people to have truly informed consent. You
Yes.
cannot be empowered if you are not adequately informed. And we are not being informed what we think we are eating, because it's really not even food. Okay, so do you want to expand on that just a little bit more about the whole, how we don't know what we're eating anymore?
Yeah, but first I just want to say I'm sitting here feeling so grateful for you, Amy, and
Oh.
for your listeners, because
Thank you.
if your listeners are really listening to you and taking this to heart, their lives are going to alter. If they
Yay.
start eating organic food, they are going to sleep better. Their rashes are going to diminish. I no longer have eczema. You know, I used to have eczema.
Me too.
Yeah. So
Mood and mental problems,
all
ability to
kinds
focus.
of problems.
Mhm.
Yes. I mean, I would blame a very good chunk of the divorces in this country on people eating wheat sprayed with glyphosate and not knowing how crabby it can make you.
Yeah.
It can make you very, very crabby. So if you are
Yeah.
a crabby person
Yeah.
and you've just eaten
Yeah.
a croissant, I would, a non-organic croissant,
A crabby sandwich.
I would start to log that down and see when you're crabby and see
Mhm.
how your food might be impacting that. And then just try going gluten-free and organic for a while
Mhm.
and see how that might impact you. I lost 16 pounds in 6 weeks by going gluten-free and with no exercise after
Amazing.
my second baby. And so anyway, so they're doing all of this to the food, and you wanted me to talk about what was the question again? I'm sorry, we got carried away.
Well,
with
just
thanking
because
you.
I think we just have to underscore how people are just trying to, everyone's busy, right? We all got stuff to do. We got bills to pay. Like people, oh no, you're telling me I have to eat everything organic. First of all, it's really hard. You can't eat out. You've got to read every single label. And you got to be a food detective, and it's expensive, right? Although it's getting better, thank God, because it's getting more mainstream. So practically, Zen, like, how do people do this? And maybe just to underscore why. Again, back to the people like in my family who think, I'll just get that veggie spray and clean it off. Like, no, that's not working. It's in the food. It is the food.
Well, when you ask why, I would ask everybody to think about how important are your relationships. To me, that is everything.
Yeah.
And when you are not feeling good, you're not your best in your relationships. You are not a great mom. You might be snapping at them or irritable. You don't have what there is to give to your spouse. If you're spiritual, to God, to your community, you just cannot be your best self if you don't feel good. So I would first ask you, and to yourself, your relationship with yourself, how important do you feel like your body and your life is? And so I would ask you to put that first and make that commitment to yourself. I remember with my son, when he had those allergies, I was thinking in my head, I don't care if we have to eat birdseed together, right? We're going to do this. Like, I had that moment of commitment. Wow. I don't care what we have to do. We're going to do this. And that's where you need to be to make that kind of life change, like to purge your pantry of all the processed foods or the processed foods that are, GMO, right? And not organic, to get all of that out of your house and to throw out food that's a major commitment.
Yes.
It's a major commitment, but that's what needs to happen in most cases for you to stop eating that stuff. Because if that stuff's in the pantry, I might eat it, to be honest with you.
Plus they put food ingredients
if
in
I'm
the
really
food
hungry and I don't have good
Yeah.
willpower, I might eat that. So for me, it has to be out of the house, you know. And I would just urge you to set yourself up for success that way, to get all the stuff out of the house that you should not be eating, put stuff in the house that you will feel good about eating. And yes, you know, change your budget. Honestly, I buy most of my stuff, my clothing, from Goodwill and consignment. I don't like to spend money on retail. I think it's ridiculous for clothing, especially. I would rather have that money go towards organic food. And, you know, our housing situation, our electronics, or whatever it is that we need to have, it's usually consignment, or, you know, not the newest thing. We don't try to get the newest things. Our vacations are camping. We just don't spend a lot of money on things that are just not as important to us. Our commitment is organic first for the whole family. And, you know, if our children go out and, you know, there's like a donut at church, or, you know, somebody's house, and they have some food that's not organic, that's up to them if they're going to eat it now. They're teenagers.
Nice.
And most of the time they don't have a problem with it now, but they did notice when they were kids. Oh my gosh. One time for camping, this is to give you an example of why it's so important. I worked so hard as the outdoor coordinator for Cub Scouts, you know, to organize this entire camping event for like 60 people, you know, a dozen or so different families, and to provide organic food. Like I got the organic eggs and the organic, you know, things, the tortillas, everything organic. There might've been one or two things that were not organic, but then somebody brought marshmallows.
The same things happened to me so many times.
Somebody brought marshmallows, and we acquiesced, and we let our kids have one marshmallow each, and all three of them got that red line around their mouth.
And all
three of them.
loose. Yeah.
And then they're cranky and they're irritable. And I was like, oh my God, it's just all that work down the drain.
And people are saying you need proof. I mean, come on. And the best thing is when they're old enough to see it themselves. When people connect the dots, I mean, can you put a price tag on feeling good or feeling like shit? Can you put a price tag on sleeping well and having good energy to exercise? Because you have energy to be more calm and patient with your children, with your spouse, your partner. I mean, it's the ripple effect, right?
Yes.
So we have to prioritize how we spend our money. We know that. I mean, I guess we're preaching to the choir. But I want to just reiterate before we go and finish with the school lunches, the latest research. Glyphosate, we also have to consider cotton because it's non-GMO, like in sanitary products, tampons, women are inserting inside their body these chemicals, the cotton, our clothing, the external, like you mentioned, your budget. I'm the same way. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to grow anymore. I don't need any new clothes unless something wears out. But at this point, if I buy anything, it's from like Blue Canoe or one of these companies that are mail order, just basic cotton. It's just better for my body. But so anyway, non-GMO, but also not only what we eat, but what we ate. So we have to consider what the animals, so we're thinking of the plants and how they were grown, right? But we have to also consider the eggs, the free range meats, dairy, if you have dairy, chicken, whatever. We have to consider what those animals ate, which is why we want small farm, free range, organic as well.
Yes, and we have to consider that because studies have proven that when they eat GMO grains, which is 95% of the grains or whichever that are fed to our animals, the glyphosate on them, you know, goes into their bone marrow and their tendons and their meat and their milk and all of that. So we're not just saying this because it's theoretical; it's been proven, and you want to avoid. And there's hormones and all kinds of
antibiotics,
all kinds of drugs.
Because these GMO things they're injecting into these animals create tumors, cysts, and all these health problems in the animals. So it's this whole domino effect of negativity for the poor animal. Then they got to inject them with antibiotics. Then they're injecting them with growth hormones. I mean, it's just this constant barrage of injecting these animals and creatures with crap because they're not healthy. And then we eat them and wonder why we're not healthy. And we've got trillions of dollars of our budget on, healthcare expenses more than any other country in the world. I mean, it's out of control. So we have to get back to the basics, which is food.
Yeah.
So
organic food. And by the way, all that injection stuff and
Real
antibiotics don't happen with organic and pasture raised livestock. So that's what you want to look for. Yeah.
Perfect. Good point to put a pen in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've mentioned that you like making decisions and taking action based on the future that you're committed to creating, and that you really want people to feel empowered to be community leaders and global game changers. I mean, you know, you've proven in your life, Zen, you're all about action, which I love. And the Moms Across America group is we're as we get to the end, that'll be in the show notes, but we're going to direct everybody there because, as Zen is mentioning, everybody, you want the science, okay, go for it. You could be on there for hours and weeks and months at a time researching.
Yes,
I love it because I'm
Yeah.
the same way. Like, I'm not going to believe anything you say. Like, first of all, I want to experience it myself, and then I know, right? There's a difference between, you know, thinking and knowing or experiencing.
Yes.
But all the science is there, everybody. But let's get into the most recent science as we wrap it up here, because you just came across some amazing research based on school lunches, glyphosate, what's going on with the kids' food supply.
Yes. So we put a call out to our moms and dads, mostly on TikTok. It was 100-something thousand people saw it in the first hour, and emailed out our email list and asked people to go have their children buy a school lunch, bring it home, freeze it, and FedEx it to a lab. And at that lab, we have some supporters. Half the money came from Moms Across America supporters, half the money came from Children's Health Defense that we're very grateful for. And we had those school lunch items tested for, 43 of them, tested for glyphosate and AMPA. AMPA is the breakdown of glyphosate, and it's even more toxic. And 220 different pesticides, the most egregious ones, the ones that are actually being used, you know, in the food supply versus what the FDA tests. They test for a whole bunch of pesticides that are not being used, and so that they can say, oh, 98% of them were not positive, right, for these pesticides. Well, they're not testing for the pesticides that are actually being used. So we tested for the pesticides that are actually being used, and we tested for veterinary drugs and hormones, and we tested for heavy metals and for nutrients. And what we found was that 95.3% of the school lunches were positive for glyphosate and AMPA. 74% of the samples contained at least one of 29 different harmful pesticides. 74% of these school lunches. And for veterinary drugs and hormones, some of them are very serious drugs and hormones, were found in 9 different samples of lunches at up to 130 parts per billion. That's very high. And 100% of the school lunch samples tested for heavy metals. And when you look at the numbers, it looks like it's not high because it's like 2 or 5 or 19 or 20, but some are 94. And when you look at the levels allowed by the EPA in drinking water, those levels are like 0.015, 0.05, 0.5, very low levels. So we can accurately say that 100% of the school lunches had high levels of heavy metals when you're looking at what the EPA allows in drinking water, okay? And according to a first glance, we still have people that are gonna be analyzing this information because it just came out Wednesday, but according to the first glance, it looks like pretty much all of the samples have low levels of nutrients. And that's a problem because when you don't have the proper nutrients, as you know, as a health coach, your body cannot function the way it's supposed to. Your brain does not make good decisions. You cannot learn properly. You cannot stop aggressive behavior. And it's very important to have proper nutrients to prevent, you know, different types of behavioral problems. So the school lunch testing shows that we are basically poisoning our children.
Yeah.
Our government is allowing the poisoning of our children, and it is a travesty, and it is not in the best interest of the future of this country. If we want to be a superpower, we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot. You know, this is not how you foster a superpower of a nation. 1 out of 6 of our children now have learning issues. I think it's probably even more. That stat's probably about 10 years old now, and we are poisoning our children. So we need to seriously take action. At the bottom of our blog on momsacrossamerica.org, we do have a call to action. We ask people to please email your senators and your representatives. They have to know about this. They really do. They have to get thousands and thousands of people to bring this to their attention for them to be aware of what's happening here and to do something about it. And the USDA. I mean, they simply have to take action. So we ask people to take that action.
We do. And I like that you also provide not only cute T-shirts that even have like some for dogs, which I need to get two for my puppies, but you provide flyers that are ready to go. Moms can register to get materials to be supported to walk in their 4th of July parades. And what I love too about your site, Zen, that you were very passionate about is you guys have just like a nice, soft, non-confrontational way of being quote unquote activists. I mean, it's really nice. It's not like the in your face. And, you know, I've heard you say it's kind of funny. Like you're not the kind that people are going to roll up their windows when they're driving by, you know, you're just more like just awareness, you know, like just to say, you know, so people are aware, like we said in the beginning, this stuff's not even on the label, folks. You're definitely eating it. And look at the school lunch program. It's in your body. It's in breast tissue. It's in mother's milk. I mean, the kids don't even have a chance. They're already coming out of the womb with this stuff circulating in their blood. And we're wondering why one in 3 kids has autism or ADD or allergies or some problem. This is insane. And these numbers are only going up. Okay, so your organization, flyers ready to go.
Yep.
All the materials.
And can I say about the flyers right now?
Please.
We are clearing some stuff out, making space in warehouse, things like that. You know, want to get things moving and out there. So if you put in the code TEAM, TEAM, you get 40% off everything in the activist store right now. So all the t-shirt, all the t-shirts and the flyers,
done,
and all that stuff. And I believe there's some codes too for the health solution store. We have things like Ion Biome, which used to be Restore. There's a lot of sales going on now because we just don't want to have all this stuff in warehouse. We need to cut some costs. So we want to get it out there, and it does not do any good on the shelf. So get it out there. Wear the t-shirts. We had some woman email us recently that she found out about Moms Across America because somebody left a stack of flyers in the grocery store by the door.
Nice. And
so she learned all of this information that Moms Across America has to offer. Her kid is 80% better with their symptoms. And that's because somebody just got a stack of flyers.
One person
at the grocery store. So come on, folks, we can do that. Get them out there, get them to the library, to the grocery stores, you know, leave them with your mom's clubs, you know, your church. It's up to us. The government is not going to tell you this information that we just talked about today. They're not going to tell you what Amy said about your liver and detoxing. It's up to you to get that information and to tell your friends and family and your neighbors. And it's up to us to create healthy communities. That's our motto. We are up to creating healthy communities. So we
and protect our children and ourselves and the planet and the animals and the plants and everything, the birds and the bees. You know, you remind me of the flyers. I've left them in like ATM little stalls, you know,
there
like
you go.
like a little packet and stuff. And like
I do the travel when we travel, you know, all those little flyers where you can go to like a cave or zip lining. That little slot.
Those stands.
Yes, I put them in there.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, I love that example. You never know who's going to pick that up, whose life you might impact. And that woman saved her child. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And in one of your flyers, you have top 3 tips from the Moms Across America. 1, buy organic and non-GMO. 2, get informed about vaccine ingredients, side effects, CDC schedule, and your child's genetic history. And 3, use safe alternatives to glyphosate weed killers, which is Roundup. Such as hand pulling, mulch, or this product called pulverized weed killer for organic gardening. Pulverize. That's great. So there's alternatives, everybody.
Yep. And there's 2 others I want to mention too.
Please,
there's pulverized. There's Avenger, which is, I believe, citrus-based.
Adventure.
And then there is Weed Terminator by Contact Organics. But that one, the Weed Terminator by Contact Organics, isn't available in California and Washington right now. Avenger and Pulverize are available across the nation. And so those are effective weed killers that are alternatives to Roundup. And we actually have a flyer called 10 Alternatives to Roundup on our website under Action and Toxin-Free Towns. And that Toxin-Free Town campaign, there's that flyer, 10 Alternatives to Roundup. It's been downloaded over 100,000 times. So people are using this flyer to tell their city councils, their homeowners associations, their schools, look, there are alternatives and you need to use them, because if you're not, you're causing cancer and all kinds of problems.
And that's the thing. There's alternatives. It doesn't have to be this way. Just for the same things, that stupid argument, like we need GMOs to feed the world, which is just a bunch of hogwash.
No, we don't.
I mean,
we don't need GMOs for anything. I was just listening to Andrew Crimbell in a talk we did yesterday for the International Day of Corn. He said there's no benefit to GMOs, no higher yield, no greater nutrition, no better taste, only risk.
Only risk. Only risk, and the risk that we don't even know the long-term effects of. So more than we know. And we have alternatives to putting all these products in the U.S. food supply, because these same companies like Kraft and whatever are already doing it for the European nations.
Exactly. Didn't that make you mad when you heard that?
Can you please just, as we close, speak to that? This is important,
I was so
everybody.
mad when I found out, especially like Kellogg's and Kraft's, these big companies,
Mm-hmm.
they make cereals and all kinds of food products for Europe and for Europeans in the UK and for Europeans that do not have even a fraction of the toxic chemicals and pesticides and GMOs that we have here. And they do it there because there's regulations in place.
They don't allow it.
They don't allow it, and the consumers won't put up with it, but they do it here because our politicians are bought out by the corporations, and because we consumers have not raised enough havoc about it. So we have to be more, we have to speak up more about this and take more action and be more on top of things, here in the United States, because they will do whatever makes money.
Whatever we allow.
Yeah, so that's why we have to impact that money-making scheme. We have to say, switch from these toxic chemicals to organic, because when their sales drop, when their sales drop, then they'll be like, oh, wait a second, we need to actually be more responsible and do something about this. So that's what it's all about, folks. It's integrity and responsibility. And we thank everybody who has the generosity to take the time to share the information on Moms Across America and from the Aphrodite podcast and all the other podcasts that are doing great work. This is the real news. This is the news and the information that will support you.
And the solution, the good news.
Solution.
Like these are solutions. This isn't just
gloom, if you go organic, just your fruits and vegetables, not counting glyphosate, okay? This is the other pesticides. If you eat just fruits and vegetables that are organic, you just switch your fruits and vegetables to organic, you're going to eliminate 98% of your pesticide intake. Then if you switch your grains, right, to organic, you're going to eliminate probably at least 98% of your intake of glyphosate, because there's a little contamination here and there, right? But you're going to eliminate a huge amount of glyphosate from your diet. So just taking those two actions, fruits and vegetables, switch to organic as much as possible, and all of your grains and your oats, your beans, switch to organic. Those are the top thing, the top two things that I would do on the list to make sure that you're getting healthier food.
And just remember, anytime you eat out or take out any boxed, packaged, canned, any of that stuff, anything that is soy, wheat, anything, it's all going to be full of GMOs and glyphosate.
Yeah. So support the restaurants that do have organic food. There are organic restaurants out there. Support those and tell your friends and family about them. If you're going to have a birthday party, have it at a place where they serve organic food. Support them.
Nice. Yeah. Or a small farm.
Yes,
That's
or a
awesome.
small farm. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. We are so grateful to Moms Across America and the whole team, and we can all get involved. Tell us about the neighborhood group that we can join.
Yes, so we have a new initiative called the Neighborhood Food Network. It's actually going to be a separate nonprofit, so we can just have that be a whole new thing. And that initiative is out to create national food security, one street at a time. But we're also creating health and connection and, financial freedom, all of that, people connecting, crossing the political divide, because you don't care if your neighbor is a Democrat or Republican, if they're coming at you with a basket full of peaches, right? To share with you, right? You don't care. So we want people to come together on their streets to talk about how to grow food locally, to start growing food locally on your street, on your front yard, your backyard, your porch, your balcony, your rooftop, whatever, so that should there be a power outage, which we know is happening more and more now, you have access to local food, and local food security. And in addition, you're opting out of the GMOs and toxic chemicals from the toxic food, industry. You're opting out of that. It's basically a parallel food system that we're creating. And you're bridging that political divide, as I mentioned, and you have more financial security. And we believe that the decisions about survival and thriving, not just surviving, but thriving, should be made on your street, not on Wall Street. We don't believe, the government should be dictating where the baby formula should go, right?
Wow.
And the food supply, right? Like where all the food should be directed towards. We believe that you should have that power. So stop by the neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com. It's just neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com and sign up for our newsletter and be invited to our Monday night calls. We have Monday night calls at 8 o'clock for Moms Across America and 8:30 for the Neighborhood Food Network.
Is that Eastern?
Eastern time. Yep.
Okay.
Eastern time. And we have experts on those calls on the Neighborhood Food Network to answer your gardening questions.
Cool.
Yeah, and
I'm
we're
in.
good, and we're looking for more experts and gardening experts. If you want to come on, if you know anybody, to refer anybody.
Sure.
We are looking for more partners and for sponsorship. If you can support Moms Across America or the Neighborhood Food Network with a donation, we are extremely grateful. We get a lot done with a very little bit of money, so it's a good investment.
Oh my God, what could be more important to
Yeah.
invest in? Oh my
Yes.
God. Zen Honeycutt, thank you so much. Moms Across America, go ahead and hit us up with your website. I think you have a new book coming, social media, anywhere else you want to direct the audience. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy, and your whole audience. momsacrossamerica.org, neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com. And I do have a book out. It's called Unstoppable: Transforming Sickness and Struggle into Triumph, Triumph, Empowerment, and a Celebration of Community. It's in English and Japanese. And because the Japanese are very big partners in the United States with our food supply. They're the biggest purchasers of grains.
Yeah.
And so I have that book, and there's a free mini ebook. We have all kinds. I have a movie called Communities Rising on YouTube. That's free. Yeah, it's 45 minutes. It's a free short little movie.
Communities Rising.
Communities Rising by Moms Across America and Zen Honeycutt. And it's filmed on my phone. And it's raw, but it's very authentic. And it tells a story about the food supply and going cross country and meeting a lot of fascinating people. And makes for a very good movie night if you want to have an organic potluck and have some friends over. Yep.
Get some nice ghee butter and some Redmond's organic sea salt and little organic popcorn, goodies. And we are good to go.
There you go.
God, yep. I mean, do you sleep? I mean, how are you doing all this? And how old are your boys now? Are they?
They are 19, 17, and one will be 14 tomorrow. Amazing. So, they are amazing. They're very independent. They can cook all kinds of their own food.
Nice.
You know, they really enjoy that. And I do get good sleep. I have a really good team. And the majority of setting up Moms Across America was done 10 years ago. We've been doing this for 10 years now. So we are trucking along. We've got 3,000 volunteers across the country that have had events or, are sharing things, doing all kinds of things. So I feel extremely blessed and grateful to be doing this work, and I see progress every day. We could spend a whole nother hour talking about all the progress of things that have been made, where glyphosate's been banned or restricted, or where the food supply things are getting better. There's all kinds of things that are getting better. So I don't want to sleep much, but
you sound like
there's a lot to do.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
But I make sure to get sleep because that's part of taking care of our health.
Indeed. I can't function if I don't sleep. That's my number one ingredient, sleep. I love that. Bringing the good news, folks. Yeah, it's out there, but there's solutions. There's a lot we can do, and it's already being done. So let's just jump on that happy bandwagon and get healthy and
get healthy. Absolutely.
Part of the solution. Zen Honeycutt, Moms Across America. Guys, it's in the show notes. Please check it out, and please share this show and share the flyers and enter the team code to get your discount. I'm going to get a couple of those little dog shirts for my puppies.
Great.
And keep up the good work, and hopefully I'll see you on a Zoom call or maybe on a 4th of July parade.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite. Thank you, Zen. Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also Fit Amy TV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.